Hey, this is David Lamb. I'm the senior pastor of Revival Tabernacle right here in Richmond, Kentucky. I want to invite you to tune into my live talk show every Saturday from 1:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. There's a lot going on in our nation and communities, and I want to talk about it. And not just talk about it, I want to discuss these things from a Christian worldview. What's going on? How does it affect us? And what does the Bible say about it? Trust me, you don't want to miss this show. I'll see you Saturday at 1:30.
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Paul Harvey. Good day.
Paul Harvey uttered those words in 1965. It's hard to believe, isn't it? What is that, 35, 50 years ago? Sounds like today's newspaper, doesn't it? You're listening to the David Lamb Show. We're so glad that you've tuned in. I hope and pray that today's show is enlightening, illuminating, and that it'll stir something in your heart and spirit. You need to know beyond any shadow of a doubt the things that we're seeing going on in this country right now. Everything is about silencing the Christian. The devil wants you to shut your mouth, keep your head in the sand, be as ignorant as you possibly can be, make no impact, cause no waves, stir nothing up. And so far he's doing a pretty good job at it, but I for one am tired of silence. This is David Lamb. Thank you for joining me today.
listening to The David Lamb Show on WCBR 1110 AM, where real life is discussed in real time.
Thank you for tuning in today to The David Lamb Show. I'm so glad that you decided to do so. Now, don't forget that you can listen live on WCBRradio.com. That's WCBRradio.com. You can also visit me on my Facebook page, and that's The David Lamb Show at Facebook. And just type in The David Lamb Show, it'll come up. And if you've got a smartphone, and most of you guys do, and perhaps you're working, or perhaps you're mowing the yard, or whatever it is, I've got people saying, hey, the best time to mow the yard is Saturday from 1:30 to 3 o'clock with my headphones in, listening to The David Lamb Show. So maybe you're one of those guys that would like to put some headphones in, plug in on Saturday and listen. Well, you can do that by going to tunein.com, TUNEIN.com, and downloading the TuneIn app on your smartphones. I'd say that you could probably go to your app store and find that. But then once you've downloaded that app, the TuneIn app, all you've got to do at that point is to type in the station identification, which is WCBR. And then you can listen any place, anytime, which is awesome. Now, if you'd like to contact me personally, my mailing address is P.O. Box 637, Richmond, Kentucky 40475. Again, that's P.O. Box 637, Richmond, Kentucky 40475. You can email me at PastorDavidLamb@gmail.com. PastorDavidLamb@gmail.com. Now, hey, maybe you'd like to receive our newsletter. Maybe you would like to receive a message of the month. You can do so by sending a donation of any amount to that same address, P.O. Box 637. So be glad to hear from you. If you want to receive more information about Revival Tabernacle, the church that I pastor, the founder and pastor there, and in my opinion, the greatest church in the world, maybe you just want to call us. And you can do that at 859-575-1270. So that's a whole lot of information. If you got any questions, I'm sure that you could call the station, and Dave would let you know what those the addresses and phone numbers are. Now, this past Sunday service, I try to always give you just a little bit of an update. I could go on and on for 26 hours a day, as one guy told me. He had I think he had a job. He said he had a job at the Cracker Barrel. He was living in Possum Kingdom or Gumdrop Bottom. I don't know. It's Crab, I don't know. Possum Kingdom or somewhere. I think it's out toward Brea. Oh, Lord, I've done offended somebody. But he said he lived there and he worked at Cracker Barrel in Richmond. And, of course, he was intoxicated heavily. And he told me that it took him 8 hours to walk to work and then 8 hours to walk back. And he worked a 12-hour shift. So that was 16 hours of walking. A 12-hour shift was 28 hours. Now, that's 7 days a week for months and months and months. He worked 28 hours a day. Well, he walked for 16 hours and worked 12 hours a day for months. And I said, well, brother, there's only 24 hours in a day. And I said, I don't think it's possible. And his wife, she clarified it all. And she was a little bit intoxicated too. But she clarified it all. And she said, Pastor, it's true. I was there. So, out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. So, here, from this point forward, there are 28 hours in a workday. And I'll tell you, that's one bad mammy Jimmy, because he walked 8 hours, worked 12 hours, walked 8 hours, and just turned around. I guess didn't even change his clothes or nothing. So, oh well, that's the way it is sometimes. But I try to give you, don't ask me how I got on that right there. I can't tell you. I'll probably get back to it here in a moment. But some of you guys need a laugh, I'm sure, today. But I try to give you an update on our Sunday services. Oh, yeah, talking about spending lots of time talking about Revival Tabernacle. And that would be easy to do for me because I love this church. I love Revival Tabernacle. I love what it stands for. I love what God is doing in our church. A lot of wonderful things are happening. God is just moving powerfully. Sunday, we came in, we sang a couple slow worship songs, and I don't know, the Holy Ghost just got into it, and before you know it, well, I kind of acted up a little bit Sunday. I grabbed a microphone and began to exhort and preach, and well, about an hour later, we were dancing and rejoicing and worshiping and crying, and the altars were filling up, and people were getting saved before I even preached. And then I preached for about 35-40 minutes, and the altars filled up again. It was incredible. And then we had youth, which was awesome. I left for Florida Sunday. A friend of ours so graciously took care of 6 nights in a hotel, in a Wingate Hotel down here in Destin, Florida, which was amazing. Man, I looked like a lobster. But I spent lots of time, me and my wife and my 4 children spent lots of time in the water, playing, building sand castles, and just spending a lot of very much needed family time. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a family man. My family is number one. I don't even feel like I can pastor a church if I can't rule my own house according to the scripture. And I think one of the most important things that a father can do is spend time with his children. And I'm not trying to say that I've mastered that or I don't have any room to grow. I do. But anyway, down here, went to Florida and was trying to spend time with the family. Had a great time. But Sunday service was off the hook, as they say. You need to come. 2 o'clock on Sunday. You won't regret it. It was, beautiful crowd of people. Revival Tabernacle is a different type of place. Folks will say, if y'all got a white church or a black church, I say, well, actually, it's a brick church. Folks are so silly. They always want to divide, denominations, divide racially, divide in some form or fashion. I ain't up for that. But we got, a church full of white folk, black folk. We got Filipino come, Hispanic folk come. We got skinny folk and fat folk. We got pretty folk and folk like me on the other side of the pretty spectrum. We got folks not so intelligent, and then we got folks like me that's pert near genius. As I tell my wife, she looks at me funny. Sometimes she agrees, though. Depends on what I bought her, on what day it is, if it's, something that she really likes. So, hey, we want you to come out and be with us. I got a lot to talk about today. Man, have you been keeping up with anything going on? It's overwhelming. And I mean, I come on here for an hour and a half each Saturday and try to do this show and try to, at first, when I first started the program, when I was asked to come and do this, I had one thing in mind, but I quickly felt to go another direction. Not to say that I'm not going to talk about Revival Tabernacle. I am. And I'm going to deal with some of the things going on in our city. But we're living in probably one of the most crucial points in American history. And I felt like God would have me. And I said, God, we're on a Christian station. I'm a Christian. And everything that I do is solely rooted and based in Christ, no matter what I'm talking about, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's family, whether it's business. I don't care. Jesus is at the center of everything in my life. And when I came in to start doing this talk show, I had a lot of things that I needed to settle. And, of course, things evolve. I'm learning, and I'll have to say that I'm humbled by the overwhelming response of all of you guys out there that are calling me and sending me messages. People walking up to me in the store, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of responses. And I don't know how many people are listening right now. Couldn't get an exact number on that, but we know it's thousands. And I'm humbled by that. People listening all across the country, and even starting to spread into other parts of the world. People listening to this program like 2, 3 in the morning. I don't know. It's amazing. And I've just been humbled by it all. But, I'm focused in on here in America, the church, and really it's all about silencing us. Everything you see, the fear-mongering, the PC, the political correct police, has been, Dr. Ben Carson calls it, the intimidation factor. If you stand up for what you believe, if you make a definitive statement about anything that's contrary, this world is pushing tolerance. And they're tolerant to everybody but Christians. They can say anything about us they want to. They can treat us any way they want to treat us. They can do anything they want to do to us, and it's okay. Even if we defend ourselves, it's discrimination. If we can't have an opinion, we can't say anything. If we say anything about the homosexual agenda, if we talk about it being a sin, if we talk about what the Bible says about it, if we state our views about heterosexual marriage, about marriage being defined by God and the Word of God, being between one man and one woman. Now we're discriminatory there, but they can say anything they want to about us. They can call us homophobes. They can call us, haters, killers. Whatever. They compare us to Adolf Hitler. They compare us to Genghis Khan, Mao Zedong, all these different just communist dictators. It's amazing what's going on in this country, and it's an attack on Christianity. I don't care what anybody says. Of course, ultimately, it's all about a one world government and ushering in the coming of the Lord, which is a glorious thing. But it's about silencing you and me. They want us to be quiet. They want us to be in submission. They want us to tiptoe around. See, it's not about rights. It's not about gay rights. It's not about Muslim rights. It's not about that. That's what they're trying to tell us. It's about gay rights. Give us rights. Well, they already had rights, and they're wanting to pass, amendments to the Constitution, affording them more rights. The Constitution is wonderful. It affords them rights, but it isn't that they just want rights. They want us to endorse it, and I really believe that it's more than that. I believe that they want us to go to a point to where we treat them as if they are superior to us. When I say that, I say us, we, and us and them. At this point, I'm particularly talking about the homosexual movement. These guys that are pushing this agenda, the homosexuals that are pushing this agenda. It isn't that they just want rights. They want to be at the wheel. They want to be steering this thing. They want us to bow to them. Same thing with these Muslim guys. They don't, and folks are talking about discrimination and how all that the Muslims in this country want is equal rights. It's not true. It's not true at all. And in fact, I've been reading, just covered up with articles, about these type of things. The founder of CARE was quoted recently. It's just nothing. It's not done in a closet. The founder of CARE, which is a Muslim. It's a Council of American Islamic Relations. It's a Muslim organization here in America pushing Muslim rights on America. And really what they want is Sharia law in this country. But this guy, this founder, he says Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant. That's what the founder of CARE said. The Quran, and this is what else he said. He said the Quran is the highest authority in America, and Islam is the only accepted religion on earth. Now that's what the founder of CARE said. So they don't want equal rights. And in America, the Constitution affords everyone, as long as it doesn't harm someone else, as long as it doesn't hurt someone else. The American Constitution gives everyone the right of religion or to not be religious. It gives you the First Amendment gives you a right to assemble or not assemble. That's the country we're living in. It's a free country. But these folk don't want freedom. They want freedom, but they don't want us to have freedom. I'll get started, and I'll go so fast that I'll shoot over top of these things. And so let me back up. I've got some talking points here. I usually do 20 pages of them, literally, like 10 pages of talking points, and I get through like one page. It's just an hour and a half. I was asked the other day, how do you talk for an hour and a half? And I'm like, I have to cut down everything I want to say into about 10% of it. That's how I do it, and not say almost anything that I want to say. So that's how I talk for an hour and a half. How do we not have more to talk about? Why are we not discussing these things? Why are we not praying more? Why are we not bringing these things before the throne of God? Oh man, let me submit a few situations that are taking place on the world scene right now. I may spend the entire program talking about Islam, Sharia law, caliphates, ISIS, things of that nature. It's everywhere. We're being bombarded by it right now. Muslim, Islam, caliphate, ISIS, all these things. They're everywhere right now. You can't turn on the TV. You can't turn on a radio. You can't open up a newspaper. It's everywhere. And so why not? Let's talk about it a little while. I've got a lot of friends here in Kentucky that really don't. I say friends. I have friends all over the country the same way, but I'm thinking in context of the church and churches that are surrounding us, people that I come in contact with every day. Of course, I got thousands of friends all over the country, but I was thinking more about the people that I see, in my mind's eye right now, folks that I'm working with, folks that I'm counseling with, praying with, going to church with, and you too. There's a lot of ignorance, and I don't mean stupidity. I don't even mean that in a negative context. Intelligent people can be ignorant on certain subjects, and I think that we all are, including myself. And the more that I dig into this, the more I realize how ignorant that I am about what's going on in the world. And to be honest with you, I did that kind of intentionally. A couple of years ago, I just threw in the towel and said, this country is going to hell in a handbasket. There's nothing we can do about it outside of pray. What's the purpose of following any of it? But I feel my heart kind of steering a different direction. I feel like all of that is going on in the world right now is directly connected to my Christianity, my freedom of religion in America. I believe it's all connected to the end times and the coming of the Lord. And so at this point, I don't see any difference. I believe that we need to be in prayer. Over and over, the scriptures teach us to pray for our leaders and those, that are over us. Pray for our government. We're in a spiritual battle here. It's affecting us on every level. We want freedom to worship. We want freedom of religion. And it's under attack. And it's being under attack in Washington. And so all of these things go hand in hand. And so I guess for me, the Lord is opening up things, and it's becoming, the picture is a little larger than it was. And so I don't feel like there's a separation. I believe that it's all connected, and that we've got to get serious about this. Islam is a dangerous religion. And there's a lot. So like I said, I'll submit a few situations that are taking place on the world scene right now, and then we'll go from there. I saw a picture where Christians were hung from a gala-like contraption and literally grilled. There was a fire built up underneath them. If you could imagine a swing set like at a park without any swings on it, instead of the swing at the bottom, it was humans, people that were hanging. They were hanging from it like swings would hang. They had built fires. These people that had hung these guys up there, they had built fires underneath them and hung them by their hands and feet in a manner in which their stomachs and faces were nearly touching the ground, and were literally cooking them their faces and their stomachs. It was unbelievable for me. And these guys are trying to find the most despicable ways to kill people. Now let's talk about deaths in America. And I got a point that I'm going to make. I'm going to alleviate one key factor in all of these things that I'm getting ready to tell you about, and then I'm going to tell you what the common denominator in all of these things are. In April 15th of 2013, if you remember, in Boston, Massachusetts, it was there that 2 bombs packed with ball bearings were detonated at the Boston Marathon. It killed 3 people and injured 264 more. And there's a lot of folks that lost limbs due to that bombing. And then on the 19th of April, same place, Boston, Massachusetts, there was a university police officer gunned down while sitting in his car. August the 4th, 2013, in Richmond, California, there was a store clerk stabbed to death. In March the 6th of 2014, in Port Boulevard, Texas, there was a man shot his lesbian daughter, shot her lover to death, and then left a copy of the Quran open to a page condemning homosexuality. That was March 6th of 2004. And then April 27th of 2014, it was Skyway, Washington, where a 30-year-old man was murdered. June 1st, 2014, it was Seattle, Washington, where 2 homosexuals were murdered. June 25th, 2014, it was in West Orange, New Jersey, where a 19-year-old college student was shot to death in revenge for deaths overseas. Then September 25th, 2014, in Moore, Oklahoma, there was a woman beheaded. That's right, I said that right. Had her head cut off. And then July 16th, 2015, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, there was a man staged a suicide attack on a recruiting center at a strip mall and a naval center, which left 5 dead. Do you remember a couple months ago when a video of 20 Egyptian Coptic Christians were beheaded on a beach there in Libya? You remember that? And then 2 other videos surfaced almost immediately after, showing Ethiopian Christians being beheaded and shot. Okay, they're putting this These videos are being broadcast all over the world, and millions of people are watching them. September 24th, 2015, now this is in Yemen. At least 29 Shia worshippers were reduced to pulp by a dedicated Sunni suicide bomber. And then the 21st of September in Iraq, 3 family members were shot to death by religious radicals. And again in Syria, 7 men were shot by Islamic State for being gay. September 20th, 2015 in Nigeria, Boko Haram bombers struck a rival mosque and several other buildings, killing at least 80, including children. And, you know, I said all of that. And let us also remember again September 11th, 2001, when 3,000 Americans died when 2 planes were flown into our World Trade Centers. Now, I don't know, I didn't count how many instances I just gave you, and that, I didn't even scratch the surface. It was just a drop in the bucket there. I guess my question is what do all of these have in common? What do all these murders and terrorism attacks have in common? Every one of them were perpetrated by Muslims in the name of Allah and Islam. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying every year in the name of Allah, in the name of Islam. And we say, well, we shouldn't say anything about it. Well, let me explain something to you. If Islamists, those that hold to the literal interpretation of the Quran, have their way, you and I will also be slaughtered. It's that simple. So we hear these things and we act like it's not here in America. We act like it's not a threat here, but it is. It is. You've almost got to be deaf and dumb, deaf and blind, in order to not see the relevance of what I'm talking about here. Islam, Muhammad, Muhammad. You take for instance Muhammad. If you draw a cartoon of Muhammad, you could be killed. I mean, can you imagine how many people would be dead if the same standard was held true to those that drew blasphemous pictures of Jesus Christ, blasphemous pictures of the Bible and preachers, Christian preachers, things of that nature? Can you imagine? Oh, there'd be millions. This liberal world that we're living in hates Jesus Christ. They hate Christianity. Jesus said it would be that way. This world will hate you. It first hated me. That's what they said. It's the way it is. Guys, we're living in a dangerous time, and I'm going to show you before this program is out how dangerous it really is. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and it is in America. It is flooding this country. It's not going away. It's growing faster than Christianity by a long shot. And we're saying, well, as long as I've got my Twinkies, my Doritos, my Diet Mountain Dew, and my, America's Got Talent, my American Idol, hey, I'm fine. We are not fine. We need to talk about it.
You're listening to The David Lamb Show on WCBR 1110 AM, where real life is discussed in real time.
All right, we're talking about Islam in America. And really, what we're talking about is this world's attempt to silence Christianity. They don't want the voice of Jesus to be heard in this world. They don't want the voice of Jesus heard in Congress. They don't want the voice of Jesus heard in the White House. I'm not even talking about a theocracy. Sure, I would love for Jesus Christ to be sitting on the throne in Jerusalem, ruling and reigning, total and complete submission of the world to Him. I would love to see that. It's coming. It will happen. Every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess. But that's not today. We live in America, in the real world. This is a republic, often called a democracy, which is not technically a democracy, but hey, we're the greatest proponent and advocate of democracy in the world. We are a republic. We are by the people, for the people. We elect representatives to represent us, and they vote and to whatever. It's a lot of puppets, a lot of talking heads, But the concept behind it, we vote in people that represent what we want. It's a good concept. There's a major breakdown because these guys are political, career men. That's what they want to do for the rest of their life, so they're going to do whatever it is they need to do to preserve their jobs as opposed to actually represent the people. That's what it is. Politicians. That is an interesting word, politician. It basically comes from a word that means citizen or city, and also has a Latin meaning. I think it comes from Greek, citizen and city, and basically the government that runs that. But there's also a derivative there of Latin etymology, meaning smooth. And you look at those, city, citizen, and smooth, and you're like, well, that doesn't line up. But that's exactly what it means. Someone that is, dealing in government, politics. There's that word again: politician, political, politics. Okay, smooth, meaning in terms of their engagement and their propagation of proposals of bills. And I mean, think about this: smooth. Why do you think they call him Slick Willie? Well, Bill Clinton, they called him Slick Willie for a lot of reasons that we can't discuss here in an open forum. But listen, slickness, smooth, being able to manipulate and push this direction, that direction. That is what a politician is known for. I mean, have you ever heard of anybody talking about honest politicians? Well, I haven't either. And you know what? That's one of the things that I do like about this upcoming election. I believe that there are some people running that may perhaps be true Christians, people that have not been perfect. All of us have done things or made judgment decisions or sided with a particular person or thing that we wish we hadn't, and all politicians are the same. And so, yes, we have to look at people's past records, but we also have to look at, in the present context, were they repentive? Did they acknowledge their error? Did they, that sort of thing. But, Christianity is under attack, and we're looking at the political field, the political world, and a lot of us country bumpkins look at that and we digress because it's such a big thing. We're like, I could never understand all of that. You don't need to understand everything. I don't think anybody does. Maybe a political science, someone's got a doctorate in political science, studied it their whole life, and they're 163 years old. Maybe they may know everything there is to know, but I don't, and I don't expect you to know. But if we can just understand this, that the prince of the power of the air is trying to silence the voice of Christ, trying to shut down the hands and feet of Jesus in every area. People say to me a lot of times as a pastor, the devil has been messing with me all day long. And I say to them, no, the devil, it's impossible. The devil is not omnipresent. He can't be at two places at the same time. Now, he's got demons, he's got imps that do his bidding, but Satan himself is not everywhere at all times. He doesn't know what you're thinking. He may be able to guess. He knows man better than we know ourselves. He is an angelic being, much more powerful, intellectually, superior to all of us. But he's not God. And so he can't be at your house and my house at the same time. So if two people come to me and say, Pastor, the devil's been beating on my door all day, well, one of them has to be wrong, and probably both of them. And I'm going to tell you why. The Bible said that the devil is the prince of the power of the air. When Job, in the book of Job there, when Satan came before God, he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to and fro in the earth, up and down in it. Well, I think it was Peter that told us that the devil is going to and fro in the earth, seeking whom he may devour. Okay, and then you lay all of that. So the devil is active. He's on the move. But where is he on the move at? Well, the Apostle Paul told us that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're mighty through God, pulling down, every stronghold. What does that mean? Okay, well, very simply this: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Guys, Satan is not messing with you and me. Now, I have no doubt about it that there are powerful prince spirits over every city. trying to wreak as much havoc as possible, trying to track anything that has to do with God or Christianity, trying to keep a stranglehold on our country. Drugs, prostitutions, all these different things, deviants. You can go to certain cities and you'll see a predominant sin. You go to San Francisco, there is a powerful prince spirit over that city, and his main weapon is homosexuality, drug abuse. It's everywhere. I mean, that is something that the enemy is using, powerful prince spirits. But the devil is in high places. He's trying to control governments. He's trying to control the wealthy, the movers, the shakers. He's not so much worried about you and me. Now, at any moment that you and I decide to go to God in fasting and prayer, and I mean pour our lives out to God in a way that there is no turning back, when we take up our crosses completely, total surrender, complete devotion to God, I believe the enemy does get nervous there, and there's no doubt about it when a man or woman is totally sold out. And I'm not talking about this junk. You go to church on... I'll retract that. I'm not going to say junk. Please forgive me. I'm just so passionate about the things that God is dealing with my heart about. I don't mean to call it junk. It's never junk going to church on Wednesday and Sunday, even if you don't think about going to church any other time. That's always good, okay? But there's a certain hypocrisy to that the enemy doesn't fear, okay? When you have a Wednesday or a Sunday Christian, and I know that guys work, I know that guys are family men, they have to take care of their family, there's a lot of things that we have to do to survive. I understand that, and so that's why I retracted what I said. Sometimes I just use adjectives out of habit, and maybe I shouldn't do that. It's wonderful to go to church on Wednesday. It's wonderful to go to church on Sunday, even if you aren't really active, any other time of the week. I'm glad you do that. But the devil's not afraid of you. If you spend most of your time working and trying to make money for your family, you're more concerned about things, possessions, the enemy has no fear of you. But when a man or a woman decides to pour it all out before God, then he's worried about that. And at this point in this program today, I'm focusing in on Islam and the spread of Islam across the world, and particularly here in America. And I want to show you the dangers of it. But I don't want to get sidetracked. I don't want that to be the main point that is made. The main point that is made here today that I want to talk about is how powerful that you and I are in Christ. And the enemy knows that. And so everything that's going on in this world right now is an attempt to silence us. So before I closed last time, I gave you probably 15 or 20 examples of massacres, of bombings, and I brought out the point that all of them have Islam at the center of it. Islam is not a peaceful religion, and that's what's trying to be, conveyed and spewed out on us in 2015. This Saturday, as you're listening to me right now, everywhere around us, there is this push that Islam is a peaceful religion. Excuse me. Islam is not a religion of peace. Now, maybe this watered-down version that doesn't adhere to the Quran or the Hadith, yeah, maybe that's peaceful, but it's not really Islam, is it? It's something else. It's a form of Islam, but it's not really adhering to its holy book, so-called holy book. It's not adhering to its teachers, its prophets. It's not adhering to any of the tenets of, that people have, held to for thousands of years. I mean, at least 1,500 years, however long it's been. I think Muhammad came on the scene, around and died, around 500 AD. I'm gonna get me a drink of coffee here. Y'all want a drink? I've been told that my coffee is adulterated because I put yummy chocolate flavor in. I got, an probably ungodly amount of Splenda inside my awesome coffee. So, anyway, coffee, I didn't drink coffee at all. And Brother Jeff Osborne actually is the one that got me drinking coffee. So if you don't like coffee, you can blame him. You can boycott him if you want to. But he got me drinking coffee. I would lose my voice a lot. I preach pretty passionately, pretty loud. I get down. As one guy said, he gets down. I get down. And I lose my voice all the time. Brother Jeff said, why don't you try some coffee? And so I did. And that's been like 10 years ago. 12 maybe. I've never lost my voice since. So I don't drink coffee just because I love it. I drink it because I want to be able to save my voice. So you believe that? I love coffee. But I'm here. I'm drinking coffee. I'm behind the mic. I'm talking to you about Islam. I'm talking about all of these atrocities perpetuated in the name of Allah, in the name of Islam. It's a murderous religion. It's and it's spreading. It's spreading so fast that it's boggling my mind. So I left off with all these atrocities, and I want to remind you of Boko Haram, B-O-K-O, Haram. You've heard, I know you've heard that. It's Nigeria's biggest Islamist group. It was founded by Muhammad Yusuf in 2002. Boko Haram was initially a non-violent group, believe it or not. But anytime you mix Islam, I'm telling you, with any group, that group is going to turn violent, because for them it's Islam or nothing. And it's just like Muhammad, and I'll talk about Muhammad in a little while. If people don't convert, then ultimately they're going to turn to intimidation and violence. Okay? When Yusuf, this guy Muhammad Yusuf, when he died in 2009, he was taken into police custody. He was arrested. He died in police custody. And the Muslims in that region went bananas. And they became so increasingly violent that the culmination of massacre after massacre after massacre. I mean, 2,000 people just, I think, last month. That's how many people died. I mean, that's what it's come to. It went from a non-violent group to slaughtering 2,000-3,000 people a month. Now, that's crazy. That was done in the town of Baga. Maybe you heard about the Nigerian pastor. 70% of his church was slaughtered by Boko Haram. Now, when I say 70%, that's bad any place. But this Nigerian pastor said that Boko Haram had killed 8,000 of his members. 8,000. That's incredible. Reverend Samuel Dali, he's president of the Church of the Brethren in Nigeria. At his office in Jos, Dali told journalists the group, this Boko Haram, this terrorist group, had destroyed church facilities in 3 different states, leaving most of his pastors without a job. Just slaughtering men and women of God, just killing them for no other reason except that they are Christians and they will not convert to Islam. The pastor said that 176 of the 276 Chibok girls that were kidnapped last year were from his church. You remember that, all those little girls that they kidnapped and mistreated. It's just amazing. And earlier this month, I think it was September, it actually might have been August. It might have been August. Boko Haram jihadists slit the throats of 16 Christian fishermen in 3 villages in Borno. Oh man, I could go on forever. The head of Borno State's Fisher Union told an AFP reporter that they used knives to slaughter their victims so they wouldn't alert soldiers in nearby town called Baga. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about killers. Are all of them murderers? No. Again, I will, and Glenn Beck made a distinction between your typical Muslim that you'll meet and encounter at Kroger, at Walmart, and what is referred to as radical, Muslims today. And he made a distinction by calling some Islamic and some Islamists. Basically, Islamists being those that are labeled radical today. Fanatical, the ones that are killed. But you see, even at that, there are tens of millions of them. Literally, tens of millions of them. So it's all about semantics. And again, I know that there are Muslims out there that would never kill you. There are Muslims out there that would never hurt you. There are Muslims out there that are not they're not violent. But my point here is, if those Muslims, if those non-violent Muslims were to go to the Quran and adhere to the words of the Quran, if they were to be devoted to the literal interpretation of the Quran, they would all become murderers, or they would have to renounce Islam. If they would follow the footsteps of their prophet Muhammad, they would be murderers. They would be killers. But they're not. And so, it's equivalent to what we see in America in Christianity. Now, of course, Christianity is a religion of peace because it was founded by the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, a man, the God-man, God who became a man, was hung on a cross, killed, slain by sinners, never lifted his voice, never, railed back, never fought back. Now that's who is the founder of Christianity. And so when I say Christianity is a religion of peace, That's indisputable. Jesus Christ was peaceful, promoted peace. He called his disciples to peace. But Islam is not that. Muhammad was a murderous thug. Okay? So it's equivalent when I talk about these Muslims that do not adhere to the tenets of the Quran, the Hadiths. They do not follow in the footsteps of Muhammad. They are the ones that are screaming that Islam is a peaceful religion. Okay? It's equivalent to Christians who say they're Christians, but they don't go to church. They don't worship God. They might go to church on Sunday. They may go to church on Easter and Christmas, but they're not active. They don't share their faith. They don't pray. They don't care how they live. They live any ungodly way, full of addictions and full of, wicked lifestyles and things of that nature. You got Christians that claim to be homosexual, homosexuals that claim to be Christians, however you want to look at that. That's an equivalent to these Muslims who are non-violent, non-radical, because the Quran promotes violence. Muhammad promoted violence. And so when a Muslim does not, then they are not adhering to the true tenets of Islamic faith. So, again, some of it is semantics. Now, you say to me, okay, I come on the show today because I thought you were going to talk about whatever you thought I was going to talk about. You say, so who cares? What's all this got to do with us? What does Yemen and Iran and Iraq and all of these things have to do with us? Well, okay, I'm glad you asked, because it has a lot to do with us. Let's talk about it. Okay? Will you stay with me for a little while? And we don't really have a choice to talk about it because it's everywhere right now. And the only people that are listening to me today that don't know that it's everywhere are people that have their heads buried in the sand. And I've said that on this program over and over and over. Get your head out of the sand. Wake up. Okay? This isn't the time to hide. This isn't the time to cower. This is the time to wake up. Wipe the sleep out of your eyes and pay attention. You see, our president just signed the Iranian nuclear deal. You've heard that, right? The Iranian nuclear deal. Who cares? Who cares what they're doing in Iran? Well, I would have to say that Israel probably cares. Do we not care about Israel? Do you not care about God's chosen people? I mean, I want you to just think about that. Do you not care that these Khomeinis, these knucklehead rulers, these imams, these clerics, I probably couldn't even pronounce Iran's leader right now. They're all the same. They're all the same. They want to kill every Jew. They want a total and complete genocide. Okay? That's what Iran wants. I think Iran's leader is his name is Ali Khamenei. Like I say, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who is supposedly over Iran. They all want to kill. I don't mean some Jews. They want a genocide. They would not be happy until every Jewish person on the planet, not just in Israel, but on the planet, was dead. That's what they want. And they want a nuclear bomb. They said that they want a nuclear bomb. They said they want to use it. And they want to eradicate Israel. Now, do you care about that? I believe you do. You may not care about Iran. You may not care about Ali Khamenei. You may not care about nuclear power plants. And you may not care about enriched uranium. You may not care. But you do care about Israel. I know you do. I know you care about Israel. You know that we're supposed to pray for Israel. You know that we're supposed to protect and cover them up as much as we possibly can. Who are we to protect Israel when they've got God? But you know what I'm saying. So, who cares about the Iranian nuclear deal? We do. This deal that Obama signed and pushed through was so despicable that over 200 retired generals and admirals sent a letter to Congress begging lawmakers to reject it. Over 200. What's the big deal? 200 military minds said, do not do this. Here's the deal. You see, we had frozen billions of Iranian dollars because of their incessant refusal to allow us to inspect their nuclear facilities. Billions. We had put a freeze on billions of dollars. The Iranian nuclear deal is supposed to allow them to create nuclear power plants for energy, at the same time supposedly ensuring that they cannot create nuclear weapons. Okay, that's what the Iranian deal was about. Allow them to have nuclear facilities. We unfreeze billions of dollars so they can do that. But in the meantime, they're supposed to allow UN inspectors to have free course to inspect whatever they want to inspect to ensure that Iran never creates a nuclear bomb. Okay, that sounds good in theory, right? Nothing wrong with a country being autonomous and allowed to have nuclear power plants and have their own energy. And I mean, that's understandable. But we have this is the same Iran that has lied and lied and lied and would never allow inspectors in, and for years. And now all of a sudden they are making all these promises. Yes, we don't want nuclear weapons anymore. We'll let you inspect our facilities anytime you want to. Okay, yeah, all of a sudden they're honest and they would never ever lie. It's amazing. Did you know that over 900 rabbis signed a letter opposing the nuclear deal, the Iranian nuclear deal? That is what Israel thinks. Over 900 rabbis signed a letter opposing it, but our awesome president did it anyway. Barack Obama just put one of the wickedest regimes in the world 500 steps closer to creating a nuclear bomb and dropping it on Israel. That's what the Iranian nuclear deal is about, and we did that. We just came into alliance with Iran. Okay, that's what we did. So what's it to us? Well, okay, what about the high school, or the middle school rather, in Tennessee? You know, Tennessee, that's a state, one of the 50. You know, Obama said one of the 57 states. There's actually only 50. But Tennessee, middle school, they had a history assignment, and the students were asked to write, Allah is the only God. Brandy Porterfield said they did this assignment where they wrote out the 5 pillars of Islam, including having the children learn and write Shahada, which is the Islamic conversion creed. Porterfield said that she spoke with the Spring Hill Middle School teacher and principal, who said there would not be similar lessons on Christianity and Judaism. She says she reviewed the state standards, and there are upcoming lessons on Hinduism and Buddhism, but none of these are to the extent of what they're doing with Islam. Porterfield said students would not be expected to memorize a creed dealing with any other religion except, yeah, I got it, Islam. Porterfield said they don't study any other religions to this extent. It is the state sponsoring religion in schools. They're not going over anything else for the students to have memorized this prayer. It does seem like it's indoctrination. Now, I agree with her. And that's why my children aren't in a public school. No, it may not be in Madison County. It may not be in Richmond, Kentucky. It may not be in Madison Southern, Madison Central, but it's coming. There's no way to stop it. I mean, there is a way, but I'm saying as things are right now, there's no way to stop it. It's coming. In Irving, Texas, a Muslim boy, Ahmed Muhammad, he built a clock, brought it to his teacher. Nothing wrong with that, right? I wish I knew how to build a clock. The problem is, the knucklehead built it in a suitcase looking little thing. He builds a clock in a suitcase with wires hanging out all over. It looks like a bomb. So what do you think the teachers did? They confiscated it, called the police, they arrested the joker, and now it's bad. It's discrimination. They should have just left it alone. Even though it looked just like a bomb. I saw a video where a guy took a picture of this and was interviewing college students, just random. They was walking, he threw up a picture, said, "What do you think this looks like?" Every one of them said, "A bomb, a bomb, a bomb, a bomb. Something very dangerous. What would you do if this was in a room with you?" He said, "I would get out of the room." Anybody that's got a brain and any honesty whatsoever would have told you that looks like a bomb. But now school officials are being accused of discrimination. Hey, did you hear about the latest? I say latest. This is Saturday, so it may not be the latest anymore. I was going to say, did you hear about the latest Donald Trump uh, fiasco? Is it a fiasco? Nah. Situation, let me put it that way. Donald Trump is in a town hall meeting in Alabama. And this guy, probably hired by liberals, that's speculation, totally my opinion. You don't have to believe that. This dude, I think he said amen in the middle of, didn't sound like the most intelligent guy, but he's this guy in Alabama, town hall meeting. Trump's at the microphone. He's supposed to be asking Donald Trump a question, and he calls Obama a Muslim. He says the biggest problem in America today is Muslims, these Muslims, and he calls Obama a Muslim, and Donald Trump doesn't defend Obama. Donald Trump doesn't say he is not a Muslim, he is a Christian. He says, right, like, get on with it. Then he laughs and he said, this is what you're going to open up with. So clearly Donald Trump wasn't, down with the guy, or, it wasn't even taking him serious, but he didn't defend him. And everybody goes bonkers. And they, say that he should have defended Barack Obama. But these guys, this liberal country, and especially the liberal media, liberal agenda, they act like Barack Obama's God or something. And and I heard the news clip where Obama referred to his Muslim faith. Could have been a slip of the tongue. I mean, I'll grant it could have been. The interviewer corrected him, saying, "You mean Christian faith?" But who does that? What Christian? What true blue Christian gets confused and refers to his Muslim faith? Have you? I've never done anything even remotely close to that. I don't know any, but I digress. I don't know. I guess it's possible. Now here's the thing that I think is hilarious. When Donald Trump did not defend Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton cracks me up anyway. But she made mention of how discriminatory and unprofessional Donald Trump's silence was. I think the word that she used was appalling. It was appalling. You want to hear something hilarious? It was actually Hillary Clinton and her political campaign that first started the rumors of Obama being a Muslim. She's the one that started it. That's a fact, Jack. You can't make this stuff up. But now Donald Trump didn't even say anything. He just didn't say anything, and she says it's appalling. Well, I think that's hilarious. She's the one that actually got that circulating. Now, the thing that a lot of you I know have heard of is when Ben Carson, he said that he would not support a Muslim candidate as president, and candidate period. He went on and clarified what he meant, and basically what he was saying was that he wouldn't support a Muslim candidate unless they renounced Sharia law. Said he would be able to support them if they renounced Sharia law, but then they would become an infidel. Okay, I'll talk to you about Sharia law in the next segment. But that's what Ben Carson said. He said, I wouldn't support a Muslim running for office in White House. And this is crazy to me. All of this liberal media act like he's not supposed to express his opinion. Since when are we not allowed to vocalize who we would and wouldn't support? 25% of those polled said that they wouldn't vote for an evangelical Christian. I don't see any of these knucklehead liberal news reporters talking about that. And again, I talked to you earlier about CAIR, C-A-I-R, Council on American Islamic Relations. They have called for Carson to drop out of the election because of saying that he wouldn't support a Muslim. News anchors are saying he's finished. Well, they hope he's finished, because I'll tell you what happened. The opposite has happened. True patriots have celebrated his bravery. It's caused us to have more respect for him. It's caused us to say, hey, this guy's not going to buckle. Money has started pouring in like never before. Good for you, Dr. Carson. It took some guts to say it, and it took more guts to stand up for it. But do you understand? And I'm going to talk to you about Sharia law. Hopefully I'll get to all of this. But Sharia law is diametrically opposed to our Constitution. Why would we want a law, Sharia law, in place, a person who adheres to Sharia law in the White House, who wants to strip away every freedom, every liberty, wants to abuse and basically enslave women, children, anybody that's not a Muslim? Why would we want that in our White House? It's crazy. It's crazy. And finally, before I go on our next break, I'll talk to you about Syrian civil war and the refugees. There's over in Syria, there's 11 million plus displaced people. And what happened was in March of 2011, here's a word, a phrase that you need to get a hold of, and it's the Arab Spring. In March of 2011, there was peaceful protests in all these Middle Eastern Muslim countries. And what happened was the people, the citizens, just had a desire to shake off the tyrannical rule of these Muslim imams, sultans, clerics, whatever, they go by many different names. They wanted democracy. They wanted freedom. And so the citizens cried from the streets of Egypt. They cried out from the streets of Syria and Iran and a host of other countries. But Islam won't allow for peace. There's only room for submission. Anything else is death. Okay? So basically, civil war broke out, and these Islamists began to slaughter and slay and kill people that wanted democracy and freedom. And now 11 million people are displaced, and there's a civil war. And what did our awesome president do? He did nothing. Plain and simple. And I read last night, I think it was in one of his books, that he said that if the political winds changed, that he would side with his Muslim brothers. I read it with my own eyes. You can debate the context, but he said it. This is troublesome. It's all very troublesome. So here we are, Islam in the United States of America. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Lamb Show on WCBR 1110 AM, where real life is discussed in real time.
All right, I'm back. This hour and a half goes by so fast. It's really shocking. I've got 5, 10, 6 hours, 10 hours. I don't know. Depends on what mood I'm in. 50 hours worth of material in front of me. And now I have about 26, 27 minutes. And that's, I'm running out of time. Let's capitalize on Islam spread in America today. And don't forget, I'm talking about silencing Christianity. Whether we're talking about the gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever, transsexual, bisexual. There's so many terms now I can't even keep up with them. I used to make up names because I thought they were funny. Racial, transsexual. I thought I was making those words up, and they were actually words. I thought I was making fun, but it wasn't. They're actually out there. Whether we're talking about that, whether we're talking about Islam, whether we're talking about race, whatever. They're trying to silence us. They want us to shut down. But this segment, this program, I say this segment, actually this whole entire program, we're talking about Islam in America. And Islam is different. The homosexual, these homosexual guys, they're pushing this agenda, gay and lesbian agenda. They're violent, but they're violent in a different way. They're vocally violent. They are, legally violent. They will sue you. They will shut your businesses down, which, it's horrible. It's violence. They're violent too. But they don't do it with fists. They don't do it with bombs, okay? They're trying to intimidate us into not saying anything. So don't say anything. Don't use your program to say anything about it. Well, you can see I'm going to talk about it. And, I'll talk about it until I can't anymore, and then I'll let God deal with the rest of it. Let God sort it out. If it's either the homosexual agenda, or it's Islam, or it's whatever. There's 1,000 different things pulling at us, trying to shut us up. Islam is different because Islam, they'll kill you. These guys, these radical Islamists will kill you. They will hijack your websites. They will take over your Facebook accounts and all of these things. And they did that to us. We had like 50,000 friends or followers on Facebook. They hijacked our page, kept it for days. Facebook finally got it back for us. They took over our Revival Tabernacle page and put, I love the Quran, I love Islam, etc., etc. Sent out thousands of invitations to Al Jazeera. But when we got it back, the page went bonkers, and it started picking up like 25,000 friends a week. Ended up getting over 300,000, and we're pushing 370 plus thousand, reaching 1 million people a week right now. And partially because these devils, these Islamic devils, stole our Facebook page, trying to overcome what we were doing in the name of Jesus. And I say that without any hesitation. Anybody that wants to kill Christians and kill Jews and bomb and murder little children, they're evil. They're devils. And that's what's coming to America. So let me move really fast and give you a bunch of information, 90% which you will not retain, but you'll get the point. How many Muslims are there in the world? Because it is the fastest growing religion in the world. Well, the answer to that is there are about 1.57 billion. Billy, Bob, billion. 1.57 billion Muslims in the world. It's 23% of the world's population. 23% of the world's population is Muslim. There are only 2.2 billion Christians, which is quite a bit more. I guess I say quite a bit, 700 million more than, there are Muslims. But the problem is they are spreading at 1.8% per year, where Christianity is only growing at 1.29%, which means ultimately Islam is going to overtake Christianity as the largest religion in the world. Right now, there are at least 50 Muslim majority countries in the world. You go to Turkey, it's almost extinct. I think like 1 point something percent, right at 2% of Turkey claims to be Christians, and that's counting Catholics, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. That's counting all of them. Anybody that even says Jesus, they count them in that. So Christianity is basically extinct in Turkey. Islam's coming to a city near you. In fact, it already is. Islam has already affected the world. Now you think about this. We act like it hasn't affected us, but it's affected everything. You go to an airport. Tell me Islam hasn't affected, these terroristic bombings and all this. Go to an airport. The security is insane. Take your shoes off, take your belts off. You gotta, slide everything through an X-ray machine. All these things. We can talk about nuclear arms races. We can talk about the political correctness police. Everywhere you look, Islam is affecting us. It's already here. Now, I want you to consider this, that Oklahoma signed a bill banning Sharia law from courts, and it was struck down. They signed a bill banning Sharia law from an American court of law, and it was struck down. What in the world? What was the reason? They said it was unconstitutional. Sharia law being banned from our government is unconstitutional. This constitutional amendment was approved by 70% of Oklahoma citizens. But one federal judge struck it down, said it was unconstitutional. That's insane. I think abusing and raping women is unconstitutional. I think enslaving children is unconstitutional. I think beheading people and cutting off their hands and arms is unconstitutional. But hey, who am I? I'm just a poor, fat, white, balding dude here, preacher, trying to talk to you. Who am I? Hey. Maybe Sharia law is compatible with the Constitution of the United States of America in some other universe. Now, there's an increasing number of public American schools right now. I did say American. Say that with me. American. An increasing number of public American schools with Muslim students are holding Islamic prayers towards Mecca, while public American universities continue to build Muslim-only washing facilities in the good old U.S. of A. In 2013, Skokie School District 68 in Illinois became the first U.S. school district to celebrate Eid, I think you say it this way, Eid al-Adha, which is a Muslim high day, a Muslim holiday. They celebrated Eid al-Adha as a school holiday in lieu of Veterans Day. In 2014, Rocky Mountain High School in Fort Collins, Colorado, became the first high school ever, I said Colorado, first high school ever to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic, replacing one nation under God with one nation under Allah. And I researched all of these points. I went back to find multiple sites. They're all valid. They cited the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic and replaced one nation under God with one nation under Allah in Colorado. In 1996, Bill Clinton became the first U.S. president to hold an Eid al-Fitr dinner at the White House. I don't speak Arab. I got pretty close there. I actually looked up the pronunciations. Eid al-Fitr. That kind of sounds like Medea Fitr. Anyway, sidetracked. Eid al-Fitr dinner at the White House to celebrate the end of Ramadan. Okay, Ramadan is the Muslim month-long dawn to dusk fast. You remember Ramadan? Okay, Bill Clinton held a dinner to celebrate the end of Ramadan. Eid al-Fitr includes 6 takbirs, Takbirs, 6 takbirs, which is the raising of the hands, and shouting, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, to declare Allah, the moon god, is the greatest. It's amazing. Right here in America, Bill Clinton did that. A dinner to celebrate Ramadan. 2000, the Republican National Convention. This blew me away. In fact, the next two blew me away. In 2000, the Republican National Convention, and I did say 2000, I'm talking about 15 years ago, guys. You act like this is a new thing. This isn't new. In 2000, the Republican National Convention became the first U.S. presidential convention to open with a Muslim prayer to Allah, who is, by the way, the moon god, the Arabian moon god. In 2007, the Quran, for the first time, was used to swear into office a new U.S. Congressman, Keith Ellison. 2009, Hudson County Superior Court Judge Joseph Charles Jr. ruled in a case where a Muslim ex-husband repeatedly sexually assaulted his Muslim ex-wife both before and after their divorce. I want you to listen to this. I almost threw up a little bit when I read this one. Following testimony from the Muslim man's imam, his preacher, if I could say it that way, the judge denied the ex-wife's request for a permanent restraining order against her ex-husband, citing that the Muslim man's belief and practices. Okay, I want you to listen. I'll give you the quote. Here's a quote. The court believes that defendant was operating under his belief that it is, as the husband, his desire to have sex when and whether he wanted to was something that was consistent with his practices. In other words, she wanted a restraining order against him to keep him from sexually abusing her, raping her, and the judge says no, because it is consistent with Islam. Whoa. In America, did I tell you that part? Did I tell you that? Did I tell you that was Hudson County? Yeah. In 2009, a Christian U.S. soldier at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan received Bibles in 2 local languages sent by his American church as planned. The U.S. military confiscated those Bibles, and instead of at least returning them to the church that sent them to him, burned them. By contrast, when Terry Jones, a pastor in Florida, announced his plan to burn a copy of the Quran in 2010, General David Petraeus, the commander of the U.S. military in Afghanistan, publicly objected to his plan, while U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton denounced his plan as disgraceful. So, the United States government, the military, can burn the Bible, but it is disgraceful and wrong to burn a Quran. Double standard. And I am talking about the United States military. Next, to attract and manage Middle Eastern Muslim wealth, an increasing number of American financial institutions are becoming Sharia compliant. This requires donating a percentage of their annual profits to Islamic organizations designated by their Sharia compliance advisors, many of whom are members of the Muslim Brotherhood and funnel money to even terrorist groups, wicked groups, and these donations must go to one or more of 8 recipient categories, one of which is jihad. Can you believe that? Muslim taxi drivers in the United States of America, especially in New York City, they're challenging local authorities for the right to refuse to pick up blind passengers with seeing eye dogs, while Muslim supermarket cashiers are challenging their employers for the right to refuse the sale of products from pigs, because dogs and pigs are considered unclean in Islam. So now they're trying to change what we sell, they don't like man's best friend, in other words. Now, again, you say, what's the big deal? Islam is a peace-loving religion. Well, there's only a handful of radical Muslims. Pastor, what are you talking about? There's only a few, and we have nothing to worry about. 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, does that ring a bell? Yeah, just forget everything that I've brought to your attention during this program. Yeah, we have something to worry about. I think most of you are seeing that now. A religion is only as good as its founder. I've said that many times. Religion is only as good as its founder. It's only as good as its holy book or its writings. Now, when it comes to Islam's founder, it is the prophet, the so-called prophet Muhammad. There's almost nothing known about Muhammad. Everything that we know about him was written by Muslims, which I find very, very convenient. Muhammad was a merchant nobody. He was poor. He was nobody. He's nothing. But he met a woman who was a businesswoman. She's like 15 years older than him, which not a big deal for me. But he marries this businesswoman and sets him up financially, basically. And so what he would do is he would travel a lot for his wife, and he would meet Christians, he would meet Jews, and try to sell and that sort of thing. And he would listen to their stories, and he would hear them. If you read the Quran, you'll read a lot of things that sound like the Bible, but a lot of things aren't right. They don't add up, because he would hear a story in this house and then hear another story in this house, and they would conflict. But he didn't know they were conflicting because he was illiterate. Muhammad couldn't read. All right, so he just made up stuff, and he got a lot of things construed, which is a big issue with the Quran, which is why they lean so heavily on the Hadith, which are basically supposed to be writings or sayings of Muhammad and actions of Muhammad that was written later. But anyway, Muhammad was introduced to many other gods, not just Christian God, not just the Judaic God, but he was introduced to a plethora of gods through citizens of places like Mecca. Okay, he wanted to create his own flavor of religion. Now, this is my opinion, which is it's absolutely true. Muhammad wanted to create his own flavor of religion, so he adopted Allah. And Allah was the moon god of the Arabians, who it's archaeological findings prove this over and over and over. The moon, the crescent, all of that, the star, it's all symbols of the moon god, the Arabian moon god. That's all Allah is. Allah and Jehovah are not the same God. Allah is the Arabian moon god. Now, Muhammad tried to stick to monotheism because of the Jews and Christians. He thought that if he would stick with monotheism, that Allah being the only God, there's only one God, that it would help convert Christians and Jews more easily, but it didn't. Jews and Christians were not going to convert to this nonsense. Muhammad has an incredible resemblance to Joseph Smith. Not racially, socially, culturally, not anything like that. I'm not talking about that. But when you look at Joseph Smith was just a money-hungry, power-hungry psychopath. Muhammad is a power-hungry, psychopathic killer. And both of these men use religion to do it. They use religion to have as many women as they wanted. Muhammad would end up marrying at least 12, maybe 16 women. He would marry a 6-year-old girl named Aisha. He would consummate a marriage. He would have sex with that girl when she was 9. Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, the founder of this holy religion. He was a pedophile. Joseph Smith, the same thing. These guys were wicked, and they used religion to push, manipulate, and overpower people. Now, when Muhammad couldn't convert those in Mecca, he said Allah would allow him to worship their 3 main gods. So now he's going to switch his stance. He can't convert all these people, so he adopts 3 of their gods. He thought it would work, but it didn't. Now, of course, that is a major issue for Muslims now. They call these verses the satanic verses because all of these things are written down. If we'll serve your gods for a year, you serve our God for a year. He's going to make a deal with them. He couldn't convince them to worship Allah, so he makes a deal with them. Okay, but it didn't work, and it was terrible. It was terrible, and everybody hated it. So now they call it the satanic verses. What had happened was Satan, according to them, had infiltrated the prophet's revelation, which it seems would put all of his revelations in question, but it's whatever. They pick and choose. Okay, so they switch back, and Allah's the only God. They go back to so-called monotheism. Now, when you begin to read in the Quran, Hadith, and all of these things, these writings, you're going to find the first 13 years of these writings that Muhammad spoke, and that's what Quran is. It's a reciting. And basically what would happen was he would go into these demonic trances. He said Gabriel appeared to him, and he would go in these demonic trances and just start spouting off all this gibberish. And that's one of the interesting things about the Quran and Hadiths. They were not written immediately. It's supposed to be word for word verbatim from Allah himself. It's not like the Bible where God spoke to men who relayed what the Lord spoke. It wasn't like that. They're saying it's exact words of Allah, perfect, no problems, although then they'll talk about satanic verses and et cetera, et cetera. There's bunches and bunches of contradictions in the Quran. But they weren't written down while Muhammad spoke. Some of the hadiths, in fact, the main hadith, which again is this set of writings from clerics and imams, teachers, what have you, scholars that were supposed to have written down what Muhammad recited. And basically they used the hadith to clarify the Quran. But the problem is, like, the main hadith that they use is like 180 years, was written 180 years after Muhammad died. So no one knows even what he recited. It was all passed down word to mouth. So you got this dude, he's in a demonic trance, reciting things, demons speaking out of him, and then it's written down, 100 years later. And so basically during the middle of all this, when Muhammad couldn't convert Christians and Jews, he all of a sudden received permission from Allah to go to war against the Jews and kill them. Anyone that wouldn't convert would die. So now God orders his new children, the Muslims, to kill his old children, the Jews, who are now called apes and pigs. They were they were given permission to kill Christians. So, does that sound like the God of the Bible? No, absolutely not. I want to stress again, a religion is only as good as its founder. Muhammad was a murderous thug. He created a cult. Islam is the biggest cult in the world. It was Muhammad that not only supposedly received the revelations of Allah, but it was Muhammad that practiced them, my brothers and sisters. He killed hundreds and hundreds of people. In 2009, our president, Barack Obama, spoke about Islam's golden age after Muhammad died. He died around 600-something AD, in the Middle Ages. So the Middle Ages, 600 up to 1500, it was supposed to be the golden years of enlightenment. They were supposed to have had a lot to do with many different inventions and literature and painting and things like that. But I think it's, number one, I think it's ironic that it didn't happen until after Muhammad died. But number two, it's not true. I mean, some of the things that Muslim people did during that time that they say they did, pens and compasses, some of that is true. But there's a couple things that you got to remember. In the backdrop of it all, they were still slaughtering and murdering thousands and thousands of people for not converting to Islam. That's the golden age that our president was talking about. Okay, same president who made reference to his Muslim faith, same president who wrote in a book that was distributed all over the world that said if the political winds changed, that he would side with his Muslim brothers. Okay, the same president celebrating this golden age. But okay, what happens is you've got all these people that were Christians and Jews, and now they're threatened with either death or conversion. And there was a lot of people that converted and became Muslim. So a lot of the inventions, a lot of things that were done may or may not have been from people that were actually Muslims. Okay, they were probably, some of them, I say probably, it's speculation, but that some of them were no doubt people that were converted over. It's all just smoke and mirrors. Islam's a murderous religion. I've only got just a few more minutes left. I hope and pray that this program has been enlightening. I've got about 5 minutes, and I'll talk as long as I can talk. You need to know that in the hadiths, there are numerous in the Quran too. I think in the Quran there's at least 109 verses that call Muslims to war with non-believers for the sake of Islamic rule. Over 109. Some are quite graphic, with commands to chop off heads and chop off fingers and kill infidels wherever they may be hiding. Muslims who do not join the fight are called hypocrites. They're called, cowards, and they're warned that Allah will send them to hell if they don't join in the slaughter. Jihad is in existence because the Quran promotes it. Jihad, this holy war, the slaying of Gentiles and dogs and infidels, apes. It's there because they asked for it. Now, I'm going to skip down. I'm going to talk to you quickly. Sharia law is the Islamic legal system derived from the religious precepts of Islam, particularly, again, the Quran and the Hadith. Sharia law breaks crimes up into two parts. Serious crimes had set punishments, and lesser crimes, a judge might be able to dictate the punishment. It might be, differ in degree. Serious crimes are punished with amputations, cut your hands off, stone you to death, beheadings, beatings, things of that nature. That's Sharia law. Now, 3 years ago, Glenn Beck was relentlessly mocked for predicting that a new caliphate. Now, a caliphate, that's a word that you're going to hear quite often as the days approach. A caliphate is a form of Islamic government led by a caliph, C-A-L-I-P-H, caliph. And a caliph is a person considered a political and religious successor to the Prophet Muhammad and a leader of the entire Muslim community. Okay? A caliphate is basically a theocracy with a caliph, or this person, this political and religious successor to the Prophet Muhammad, this caliph, leading and being the voice of God. This caliphate will enforce Sharia law, and it's more or less a maniacal theocracy led by a man supposedly selected by Allah. Now, this is the thing about it. In America, okay, a caliphate is Islamic government based on Quran, Allah being supreme being, all of that. Sharia law is the Islamic legal system. Okay, 51% of American Muslims polled said they wanted Sharia law in America. 51%. Okay, and there are millions of them in America. 25% of them said that violence and jihad was acceptable to bring it about in America. Okay, so you need to get a hold of this. You need to register some of this. ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. That's what ISIS stands for. When Glenn Beck said that a caliphate would rise, that there would be an Islamic State that was ruled by a caliphate, ruled by Sharia law, they laughed at him. They're not laughing now, because ISIS has established a new caliphate. And again, ISIS stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. It's also called the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Of course, that's what the political correct guys call it. Now, ISIS, their atrocities against religious minorities and their effort to create an Islamic State in the Middle East have spurred international outrage, as well as, I mean, we've had military strikes. The United States has bombed because of this, because of ISIS. But now this is what you need to know, and I'll try to close this program out today. In June 2014, ISIS rebranded itself and called itself the Islamic State. It is the first caliphate in 90 years. There is no secular law. Sharia law rules. And under this new caliphate, you're either a true Muslim or an enemy. Okay, this caliphate has now enveloped Western Iraq. And you say, well, what's that matter? Because Western Iraq is larger than Great Britain. That's how large the caliphate is. And it's spreading like wildfire. Brothers and sisters, it's no longer time. We can no longer be silent. We can no longer be quiet about this. You know, Barack Obama said during the Arab Springs, when ISIS was attacking all of these that were protesting for democracy and freedom, Barack Obama called ISIS a JV team. He said some weird analogy like you could put Lakers uniforms on a JV team, but it doesn't make them the Lakers. He's mocking ISIS. But 5 months later, in June of 2014, they took Mosul. They took over one of the largest cities in Iraq and liberated. They took over one. I meant to say it this way: taking over one of the largest cities in Iraq, which was liberated by America. Mosul was liberated by America. American soldiers that went into Iraq had eradicated and pushed out all of these terrorists, or what have you, or at least they thought they did. But they took control over Mosul. But 5 months later, after Obama makes this ridiculous assertion, they take it. Do you understand that they had over 30,000 American trained soldiers in Mosul? But they still took it. And not only that, but they obtained millions of dollars in weapons, advanced weaponry. It's amazing. Something's got to be done, guys. And I'm going to tell you what's got to be done. We got to go to God in prayer like never before. We need to start being vocal. Learn. There's power in knowledge. The Bible said that God's people perish for a lack of knowledge. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to fast, pray, live holy, get our eyes open, and let's start lifting up our voices. Let's be bold. I don't mean just bold on Facebook. I'm not talking about quarterback, armchair quarterbacks here. I'm talking about really making a difference, really making an impact. Let's pray about it. Hey, I love you guys. Man, it's already over. I'll see you next Saturday.